Released in 1964, Zulu is one of the most enduring British war epics ever made, chronicling the dramatic defense of Rorkes Drift during the Anglo-Zulu War of 1879. Directed by Cy Enfield and produced by Stanley Baker, who also stars in the film, Zulu captures a remarkable military event, the stand of roughly 150 British and colonial troops against an overwhelming force of 3,000 to 4,000 Zulu warriors. More than a straightforward war picture, the film occupies a complicated place in the history of British cinema, straddling the line between national myth-making, colonial spectacle, and authentic historical dramatization. It remains iconic not only for its sweeping action sequences but also for its exploration of discipline, courage, and cultural confrontation. The film dramatizes the real-life Battle of Rorkes Drift, which took place in January 1879, immediately following the British defeat at Isandlwana, where a Zulu force annihilated a much larger British army. Against this grim backdrop, Rorkes Drift became a site of almost miraculous survival and heroism, where the outnumbered garrison managed to hold out for hours against repeated Zulu assaults. In Zulu, the story begins in the aftermath of Isandlwana, with the camera sweeping across the aftermath of the battlefield, littered with corpses. The viewer is immediately plunged into the harsh reality of colonial warfare. Soon after, news reaches the small British mission at Rorkes Drift that a large Zulu force is approaching. Left with little choice, Lieutenant John Chard, played by Stanley Baker, and Lieutenant Gonville Bromhead, a then-rising Michael Caine, in his first major role, prepare their men for the defense. The film's narrative is simple: the build-up to the Zulu attack, the waves of assaults throughout the day and night, and the eventual retreat of the Zulu warriors. Yet within this straightforward structure lies an examination of class tensions, military professionalism, cultural identity, and the psychology of men under siege. One of the great strengths of Zulu lies in its characterizations. The film does not attempt to tell the story of every soldier but focuses on a few key figures, offering a window into the diverse makeup of the garrison. Stanley Baker as Lieutenant Chard, an engineer, finds himself unexpectedly in command despite his lack of combat experience. Baker plays him as calm, stoic, and quietly authoritative, a man who grows into his role as the siege progresses. Michael Caine as Lieutenant Bromhead. In a breakout performance, Caine embodies an upper-class officer who initially bristles at taking orders from Chard, a man of lower social standing. Over the course of the battle, however, he evolves from a snobbish dandy into a hardened and competent leader. Jack Hawkins as Reverend Otto Witt, the missionary at Rorkes Drift. Hawkins provides moral counterpoint to the violence, although the character is portrayed as somewhat hysterical, a man overwhelmed by the bloodshed. Nigel Green as Colour Sergeant Bourne. Perhaps the film's most memorable character, Bourne embodies professionalism and discipline. His booming commands and unflappable presence serve as the backbone of the defense. Supporting characters, such as the Welsh soldiers who sing during the climactic confrontation, the injured men in the hospital who fight despite their wounds, and the ordinary privates who find themselves thrust into history, add layers of humanity to what might otherwise have been a faceless military narrative. Director Cy Enfield and cinematographer Stephen Day deliver a visually striking film. Shot in Technicolor and widescreen in Natal, South Africa, the landscapes are expansive, stark, and unforgiving. The camera often lingers on the Zulu warriors massing on ridgelines, silhouetted against the horizon, creating a sense of awe and dread. The battle scenes are staged with clarity and rhythm, avoiding confusion despite the sheer numbers involved. Enfield opts for long takes and wide shots, emphasizing the geometry of defense. Lines of red-coated soldiers firing in disciplined volleys against the surging waves of Zulu warriors. This repetitive, almost ritualistic staging reinforces the film's themes of discipline versus chaos, order versus overwhelming force. The sound design deserves special mention. The Zulu war chants and the stamping of feet create a powerful auditory atmosphere, heightening tension even before the first spear is thrown. Equally unforgettable is John Barry's stirring score, blending martial brass with African rhythms, underscoring both the majesty of the Zulu army and the resolve of the defenders. Themes and subtext. Though on the surface Zulu is a war film celebrating heroism, it contains a rich tapestry of themes that complicates its message. 1. discipline versus numbers. At its core, the film suggests that discipline, training, and technology can enable a small force to withstand overwhelming odds. The British soldiers' ability to remain calm and coordinated contrasts with the mass charges of the Zulus. The film thus reinforces the military ideal of professionalism under pressure. 2. Class conflict. The early tension between Chard and Bromhead highlights the rigid British class system. Chard is an engineer officer from a modest background, Bromhead, a well-bred aristocrat. Their eventual cooperation represents a microcosm of a unifying national myth, class differences set aside in the face of crisis. 3. Colonialism and cultural representation. Here lies the most contested aspect of the film. Zulu has been criticized for presenting a one-sided, colonial view of the conflict, portraying the Zulus as a faceless, albeit noble, enemy. Yet it must be acknowledged that the film, for its time, shows unusual respect toward the Zulu people. They are depicted as courageous, disciplined warriors, not simply savages. The final salute, in which the Zulu leader orders his men to withdraw and acknowledges the defenders' bravery, elevates the confrontation into one of mutual respect. 4. Survival and morality. The Reverend Witt's breakdown raises questions about the morality of killing, even in self-defense. His presence forces the audience to reflect on the clash between Christian pacifism and the brutal necessities of warfare. Upon its release, Zulu was both a critical and commercial success, especially in Britain. It fed into a post-war appetite for heroic narratives, allowing audiences to revel in a story of British endurance and triumph. The 1960s were a time when Britain was losing its empire, and the film provided a nostalgic reassurance of martial glory and national character. However, in later decades, Zulu has come under more critical scrutiny. Post-colonial analysis highlights how the film, intentionally or not, reinforces imperial ideology by framing the story entirely from the perspective of the British defenders. The Zulu voices, while present through their songs and chants, are largely silent in dialogue. Their motivations are not explored in depth. Instead, they function primarily as the other against which British heroism is measured. Despite this, the film has also been embraced in South Africa, where many Zulu extras participated in the production. Some have even celebrated the film for portraying the Zulu warriors with dignity and martial pride, an image often absent in Western depictions of African peoples at the time. The battle itself is the heart of the film and is staged with extraordinary craftsmanship. The attacks come in waves, each different in character. Initial skirmishes. The Zulus test the defenses with probing attacks, demonstrating their courage and ferocity. Hospital assault. Some of the film's most harrowing scenes occur here, as wounded soldiers fight desperately in close quarters, rooms catching fire around them. Night attacks. Torches and shadows dominate, creating a claustrophobic, almost horror-like atmosphere. Final dawn assault. The climactic confrontation features the iconic singing contest, where the Zulus chant and the Welsh soldiers respond with the hymn Men of Harlech. This moment transforms the battle into a cultural dialogue, where music becomes a weapon of morale and identity. The aftermath is equally striking. The defenders, exhausted and depleted, line up expecting another attack, only for the Zulus to withdraw in a gesture of respect. The silence is as powerful as any battle scene, underlining the shared humanity of the two sides. Zulu has endured for 6 decades as both a staple of war cinema and a subject of debate. Its influence can be seen in later siege films, where small groups resist overwhelming forces, from the Alamo to Black Hawk Down. Michael Caine's performance launched his career, making him an international star. In Britain, the film has often been used in schools and military academies as an illustration of courage and discipline. Yet its role in popular culture is more complex, as it has been both celebrated for its thrilling spectacle and criticized for its imperial undertones. While Zulu is a magnificent piece of filmmaking, it is not without flaws. Historical accuracy. The film takes liberties with the events at Rorkes Drift. Some characters are exaggerated, others omitted. The portrayal of Reverend Witt is especially distorted. The real Witt was not present during the battle. Simplification of the Zulus. Despite their dignified portrayal, the Zulus remain largely voiceless. The film misses an opportunity to explore their perspective on defending their homeland against invasion. Romanticization of empire. For many modern viewers, the film's framing of British heroism can feel uncomfortably nostalgic for colonial conquest. Nevertheless, these limitations must be weighed against the film's achievements as a work of cinema. Zulu remains one of the great war epics, a film that combines thrilling spectacle with thoughtful character study. Its sweeping cinematography, powerful performances, and unforgettable score cement its place in cinematic history. Yet it is also a film of contradictions, respectful yet one-sided, heroic yet imperial, thrilling yet troubling. Viewed today, it serves not only as entertainment but also as a cultural artifact, reflecting the attitudes of its time while inviting us to question the legacies of empire and the representation of history on screen. For all its complexities, Zulu continues to captivate audiences, ensuring its place in the canon of war cinema.